Might be any second.
Hello, everybody. I see that we're now streaming live on Facebook and it's 4 o'clock. So we're going to start our part 2 session from our Step Up to the Plate and Change Your Life. We did part 1 last Tuesday at 4 and it was an informational session. And today we wanted to do a follow-up and try to make it a little more applicable to daily life. And how do you do that? So I'm happy that Pastor Travis Walker from Daytona Beach Seventh-day Adventist Church is helping me, and Ida Babazada from Advent Health Daytona Beach. So thank you for joining. I'm going to share my screen and go into the slideshow. I like to use slides. They try to make them look nice, and they sure help my memory prompting for things to say. So sharing the screen, and I wanted to get that started. So we're doing this again between our church and our hospital here. Our address is on the same road, which is kind of cool. Today we're going to talk about how we apply these whole person principles to daily life routines, especially around food, and that those things that we talked about last week, they can really make a difference on the type of food choices we're going to make. So just again, this is information and general in nature, and we're not a substitute for medical professionals, and this is not a treatment. This is an educational session. So last week we were talking about readiness to change. So maybe we've continued to think and contemplate what we're ready to do differently. And if you did do something differently, how difficult, how well did it go? Were there challenges? Were there hurdles? And again, it's so nice to work with and worship with a faith-based organization, because we can call on our higher power. We can call on God to help us. And when we feel we can't do something, if we look at it differently and have our spiritual support, mental support, our physical support can be benefited from that. So I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's a lot of hope and a lot of support. Again, we like to promote our Creation Health 8 wellness principles, and choice is the first one, which I think is fabulous, because everything that we do comes from a choice that we made in our mind. So everything is done first in the mind, then we act it out in our behaviors. And rest, environment, activity, trust, interpersonal skills, outlook, and nutrition, which we're focusing on. Just another highlight from last week's presentation is this health spectrum. If you can move yourself, if I can move myself out of red zone choices and behaviors and add plant food, whole plant food, and the things that are in that plant food are going to benefit me and move me towards the green zone, which is where disease reversal and disease are stopped in its track. You can really prevent disease as well as stop it in its track and reverse it. So how do we make these one meal at a time differences? So we're going to talk about that more today. And my slide has decided not to go forward. This happened last week. I don't know. Travis is coming in to see if he can help me. But it's not wanting to move. So I don't. There we go. See, he's my helper. Thank you, Travis. All right, so we reviewed the maximize, we reviewed the moderate. This is what your handout is, and then minimize and eliminate. And last week we went through each of those items line by line and gave an explanation or some reasons for their benefit or non-benefit. So today, let's start with looking at a new type of pyramid. I know our nutrition recommendations from the US government have frequently been shown in pyramids. Now they're in a round plate, but I found this on Dr. Joel Fuhrman's website, which I think he's a really good source for plant-based eating. And I like the fact that the base of his pyramid, which represents the group where you should eat the most, is vegetables. And then right above that, your fruits and beans and legumes, seeds and nuts, and whole grains are moved further up the pyramid, which means eat less of them, but make sure they're the 100% whole grain. And the higher up you go, oils, animal products, and then, of course, at the top, you've got the sweets and the heavily processed foods. So I do think that this is a really good representation of how plant-based nutrient density can be translated into proportion of how much in general we should be eating. So this pyramid reflects we should be eating a lot of vegetables and plant material before we would get into the animal foods and processed foods. Those would be a very small percentage of the diet. So what's a day in the life like that we can talk about? Well, this is a creation health related presentation. And in creation health, we've got the mind, body, spirit. And so, you know, start your day. A lot of times I don't get out of bed right away. I lay in bed, I wake up. And I have found that that is a good time to lay there when you're quiet, you're just kind of waking up. You can say prayers, you can say meditation, and you can think about your day. You can also do stretching. You can do some, move your limbs around and stretch. And so prayer, let's incorporate that. And then water and physical activity come shortly behind after it. So there we are. We can be in bed. We can be using a little bit of time for prayer and meditation and gratefulness, expressing gratitude and thanks for the blessings that we have. And then it's time to get out of bed. And guess what? That's a great time to put your running shoes on and get out there. Ida and I live in the same neighborhood, so I'm walking and Ida what do you do when we cross each other, Ida?
Give you a little wave.
I don't hear you.
Oh, you don't hear me?
Is Ida? Unmute Ida.
Can you hear me now?
She's not muted.
I don't hear her.
Hmm.
Okay, here I go. I hear you now.
Okay, good. But yeah, I love starting my morning off and getting to see you walk and chat down the street.
Yeah.
Give you a little wave.
You're jogging. You're a jogger.
I'm a jogger. Yeah.
I'm a walker.
You're a fast walker though.
I try to walk, pump my arms and breathe through my nose and get my heart rate up. So activity as simple as walking at a pace that just kind of is a little bit stimulating, gets our heart rate up, is fabulous. It's amazing. And just so you know, if you are in a habit of needing to check blood sugars, if you check your blood sugar before you go out for a walk and say you've eaten, your blood sugar has started to elevate from that. When you come back from a walk, a 10, 20-minute walk, you come back, your blood sugar can have dropped anywhere from 20 to 60 points, which is huge. So walking not only first thing in the morning, but after each of your main meals is a great idea. And then of course, you might want to put in a little bit more focus time to some devotional practice, Bible reading, devotional reading, prayer journaling, gratitude journaling. Those are good ways to start your day in a whole person health, mind, body, spirit way. And then you really need to hydrate with water as soon as you get out of the bed. Maybe the second or third thing you're going to do is go get a cup of water. Go drink your water. We have been sleeping all night. We haven't been eating or drinking. Some people mouth breathe. Some people find that their mouth is all dried out. We dehydrate during the night because of not consuming and our breathing. So drink water, drink lots of water. And there's different ways you can drink your water. I'm showing that there's some great ideas to add real fruit and herbs in there so that the water becomes infused with those wonderful flavors. And there are some other ways to add water. I brought my lemon. I like to squeeze lemon or squeeze a bunch of lemon and put it into ice cubes so that I can pop it out into the water. And there's different ways. So Ida and I were talking about this one day, and we started talking about flavored water. So what was your question, Ida?
So, I realize I get dehydrated, but the taste of water just gets a little bland to me. So I have to admit, I use Mio.
Okay.
And I just squeeze a few squirts in my water and drink a lot more. But is Mio okay to drink?
You know what? That's a really good question, because I saw that on the Publix app when I was doing my grocery list, and Mios were BOGO this past week. And I go, oh, BOGO, I need to check and see what's in the Mios. So I looked them up. Read the ingredients out that's in your Mio.
So we have water, citric acid, sodium citrate, sucralose, contains less than 2% of natural flavor, sucrose, sodium benzoate, words that I just don't even know.
Right. Okay, so that's a hint. Go through them again. The first one was citric acid.
Citric acid, sodium.
That's a natural occurring acid found in fruits, and it's tangy, so that's why you have a lemon flavor. What's next?
Sodium citrate.
Okay, that's another form of citric acid.
Sucralose.
That's a artificial sugar substitute.
Then it says it contains less than 2% of natural flavor.
Okay.
So that's not a good sign, I guess. Sucrose acetate.
Another artificial sweetener.
Sodium benzoate and potassium sorbate.
Preservative-y stuff. Okay.
And yellow food coloring.
Oh, okay.
Yellow 5.
All right. So when I read the ingredients to Mio, I said, oh, no, I chose not to buy Mio, but in the same section right near them was this product called True Lemon. Lemonade, they have different flavors. Now let me read you these ingredients. Crystallized lemon, citric acid, which is a natural acid in fruit, particularly citrus, malic acid, which is very prevalent in apples and grapes, so it's a fruit acid, lemon oil, lemon juice, cane sugar. So in one of these little packs, there's 10 calories worth of cane sugar. Then it says natural flavor, stevia, leaf extract, and beta carotene for color. So I have to say, this is your better option, my dear. So they have a lot of different flavors. Now, why is this something to consider? I do recommend drink lots of plain water, lots of water, but sometimes the water may have an off taste, or you just need needs something that has a nice flavor and maybe a hint of sweetness. So this would be a healthy way to give yourself a break or a treat. Otherwise, cut fruit, cut lemons, squeeze fresh things, but keep the hydration up. And I'll give you this box before we leave.
Thank
So
you.
you could try it. Okay, so what's typically, what else do we typically drink in the morning, typically in North America and maybe around the world, I think too, coffee or tea, because a lot of us want our morning joe. We want our morning wake up or perk. And so this was on the minimize eliminate list. So I know it is a common practice. It is something that isn't required for health. So you just have to think about how you're going to evaluate your quantity and frequency. And then, of course, last week we talked about liquid seitan. And liquid seitan makes these products just extremely attractive and extremely calorie laden and sugar laden. But it is a fact that frequently we're having to make decisions about that. Stretching and activity. There's an activity for every single one of us. For me, I do mostly walking. I have a vibration platform. We have a bouncing rebounder. I don't know if do you go to a gym? Do you do anything? I know COVID is here, but did you do those kinds of activities?
So, like I mentioned earlier, I do love to jog. I love to work out outdoors as much as possible. But other than that, for strength, I like to do more body weight kind of workouts. So squatting or lunges, things like that.
Yeah. So, and those are great. So whatever we can do to get ourselves to move, we should do it. Breakfast. So the saying is everybody should eat breakfast. It's the most important meal of the day. And I'm a dietitian. I was trained that way. That was a priority fact in our training. So breakfast is actually important for us to remember. The real meaning of the word is break fast. So when we've been sleeping, obviously we haven't been eating or hope we haven't gotten up in the middle of the night to go get something to eat. We should have been fasting from our last dinner, evening intake to when we wake up. So trying to fast for 13 plus hours is very beneficial. But when you decide it's time to break fast, some people are breaking their fast early in the morning because they have an early work schedule. Some are breaking it later in the morning. I frequently am doing my breakfast food mid-morning. That just works for me and my routine because I don't work outside the home. And these are very typical breakfast foods. The 100% whole grain cereal. And we talked last week, get the whole grain, get the steel cut oats, get the whole wheat berries, those kinds of grains. They take longer to cook, but they are so much better for you. I'll give you a little tip that I have used for a long time. And steel cut oats can take you standing at your stove, it'll take you 20-30 minutes to get them cooked, and they become very thick. They bubble, they can scorch and burn if you don't watch the heat. Well, putting them in a crock pot, 1 cup of steel cut oats, 4 cups of waters, put them in a crock pot on high for 4 hours. Use a light timer, those old fashioned plugs that we would set the time and when we want it to turn on and turn off. That's what I would do. I would have one attached to my crock pot, plug it into the wall. It usually clicked on at 2 o'clock in the morning when I was doing it. And then by 6 o'clock when I got up and moving around, the oats were done. And then I just finished them off with other ingredients. So there are ways to cook these things that take longer time periods to cook while you're sleeping. And then if you want to have a cold cereal, these are 100% whole grain, but there again, they may not be as long lasting, for your hunger. And I have a couple of tips on how to extend a cereal for preventing hunger, which are these add-ins. If you add in nuts and seeds, a little bit of dried fruit, not a lot of dried fruit because it's very concentrated, but you can add in some craisins, some raisins, some dried cherries are great, or blueberries, any of those. But add in nuts and seeds, and that will help your body have more substance, because nuts and seeds are high in healthy whole food fat, and they are going to balance out the carb content with the cereals. And then there's lots of milk options. You don't have to drink cow milk. You don't have to feel like that's the only option. There are so many nut milks and plant-based milks on the market now. They have become very mainstream. They're so easily available, and they're economical. You can get your discounts and specials on them, and they're very versatile. Many times it may be you want to have a piece of toast. Get 100% whole grain bread toast, add nut butter, slice fresh fruit, stick your fresh raspberries on your peanut butter so they don't roll off, slice some strawberries, slice an apple, put some banana. That you can use any fresh fruit really, and it takes the place of a jam. You get that really nice, moist, sweet, flavorful nut butter. Now, granola bars, I wanted to mention this food category of item because they sound healthy, but many times if you're not careful in your selection with granola bars, you've got ones that are just very high carb, a lot of simple carb, a lot of sugar, dried fruit. They may not, they're going to, I would say, limit these. They're there in an emergency. They can be useful, but be careful with those. There are some other choices. If you make time and plan, these really aren't real necessary. Now, sometimes for breakfast, you might want to have something like a muffin, a pancake, a waffle. And typically those recipes are going to call for eggs. And I can remember the first time that I learned about flaxseed eggs, and I couldn't really comprehend it until I actually tried it. And when you mix a tablespoon of ground flax or chia with 3 tablespoons of warm water, very shortly they become goopy and sloopy like egg white. And that is a very gelatinous, viscous, it sticks things together and it binds them together well enough that it literally can replace eggs in baked products. Or if you wanted to use an ounce of tofu, these other options are really effective egg replacers in different kinds of quick breads, pancakes, waffles. Another product that I've become more familiar with also is the psyllium seed husk. That also does a really good job. So there's so many different kinds of recipes that I really don't use hardcover recipe books anymore. I use my computer and I'm Googling this, that, and the other thing, and I get so many recipe options, and I look through 3 or 4, and then I usually pick ones that have the most positive reviews, the ones that I know I have all the ingredients for, and the ones that just appeal to me more. And I have not had any shortage of recipes. I have more recipe access than ever before through my computer. There's nothing wrong with a good cookbook, but I I also use my computer a lot for that. So the pancakes, try it sometime. Just try making a pancake or a waffle or a muffin and put the flaxseed egg in it. You'll be pleasantly surprised. It boosts the fiber, it boosts the nutrition, and it really makes baking something that if you're short an egg, you don't have to go into a panic, and you don't have to stop what you're doing and bang on your neighbor's door or run to Publix. You can just use some flax. Keep that in your house for many different reasons. How many of you have ever thought of having breakfast beans? Ida, have you ever had breakfast beans for breakfast? Is that something you'd be eating normally?
Not until after talking.
No, it's something new to you also. I got introduced to this concept when I was planning menus for a conference that was going to take place in Quebec City, and their catering menu had breakfast beans as something they offer as part of their standard breakfast. And they were the baked beans, so they were the sweeter kind of bean. But when I saw that just sort of shifted my paradigm about when you can start eating beans. You can start eating beans for your first meal, and I love them. I make breakfast beans, so it's typically beans. I put onion and garlic and season them. Sometimes I take the seasoning shortcut and put salsa in there with them and cumin. And it's a simple recipe, and I make it up, and I have some on this breakfast, and I have leftovers that I can use for another meal or another breakfast. So consider breakfast beans or beans at breakfast, beans at every meal. How's that? That's a good idea. There are plenty of eggless and meatless options out there too. It's amazing how in the last 25 years, mainstream vegetarian and vegan food items are just so easy to find. And now restaurants are making these so easy to choose because the demand is there. And so tofu is super versatile. I like making scrambled tofu when I use tofu, and you season it up. And doesn't that look like scrambled eggs? But it's not. It's scrambled tofu because you color it with turmeric and it gives it that nice yellow. You put all sorts of, your seasonings, garlic powder, onion powder. You can put your fresh veggies in there and saute it up, and you get a really great scrambled eggless tofu. The Morningstar products, some of the different frozen vegetarian, vegan products, I happen to love those. There's a number of their products that I have used, I do enjoy. We serve some of these in our hospitals in the cafes and available to patients even. So they can be a good substitute or a transition item for someone. Well, how about leftovers? I am the kind of person who can eat leftovers for breakfast. I don't need cooked cereal, eggs, and toast. That to me I would love to eat that as a leftover for breakfast. So they're not just for lunch and dinner, they can be for breakfast also. So before I start talking about lunch, breakfast typically is an easier meal. We don't have or expect as much variety out of breakfast as people typically do for lunch and dinner. And for me, 5 days a week, it's going to be a really simple breakfast. And then maybe on Sunday, I do a hot breakfast where I've got more of a traditional hot breakfast. So take advantage of it being easy. Make sure you enjoy it and you like what you're eating. But I like to save my prep time, my extra creativity for what am I going to have for the lunch and dinner. Ida, do you eat breakfast?
oatmeal cereal type of.
Okay, that's good. Good.
I will start to use some of that nut
I
milk.
can't hear you very well.
I was saying I will use the nut milk though instead.
You do use the nut milk?
I'll start. I'm gonna start to.
Okay, all right. That's a good goal. There's lots of variety.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
plant-based lunch ideas. There's a lot of ways. Lunch is usually something, there's a lot of people working. And when I was working, it's like, well, what can I get within a 30-minute time frame? And many times people will pack lunches when they have a strict time frame of 30 minutes. Or if you have a little more flexibility with your lunch hour, you might then get some items, either bring them from home, or you may eat in your cafe or go out. But there's, typically salads are big for lunches, sandwiches, wraps, and packing your own food. So packing your soup, packing a sandwich, packing some leftovers, making a wrap or buying a wrap. There's things that you can do that make your lunch enjoyable, relatively convenient and quick, that you can eat it. Now, packing your lunch, it's like any other meal. You have to plan ahead. You have to make sure you have the things to pack and prepare for. Now, you can never go wrong with a salad. And I've referenced Dr. Joel Fuhrman a lot. He really promotes replacing one meal a day with a salad. And I can say, I think that's a great idea. I love salads. My sister knows how to make an amazing chopped salad. And it's got many different things in it. Don't skimp on your vegetables. He's got, make a good layer of lettuces or shredded cabbages or chopped cruciferous vegetables, and add in beans and onions and seeds and nuts. And so there's just so many salad options, and you can make it your meal. It doesn't have to be that tiny little side dish salad. It can be your meal. And dressings are easy to make. I used to think dressings were so hard to make. My older brother loves to cook, and I would see him whisking up some dressings, and I'm like, wow, that seems like it's a lot of steps, and you had to really know what you're doing. And eventually I kind of started to experiment, and I found that, well, I can do that too. So it's something to consider, because you know what's going into your dressing. There's no preservatives. There's no items with names you can't pronounce. So here's a recipe that Ida and I have done in a previous classes, and it's the chickenless salad, and this is really good. Ida, what did you think when you first tasted that?
I couldn't tell the difference. It was so good.
You couldn't believe it. You were like, this could be chicken.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much mashed up chickpeas, just made like a chicken salad or like an egg salad. You put the same thing: celery, onion. Some people can put pickles, ground up pickles, some mayonnaise, lemon juice, salt and pepper. And I like to use sometimes lemon pepper, because it's that double, it's a double seasoning. But this is a really good recipe, and it surprises people how versatile chickpeas are. And they make a great sandwich filling, wrap filling. If you want to put them on romaine lettuce leaves, they make a great filling if you want for that kind of a meal. And then we also did this Slosum cabbage salad, which is one of my favorites. I make this very frequently, and it's just so healthy. there's so many healthy vegetable ingredients and seasonings. It's got nuts, it's got onions, it's got apple cider vinegar. It's really a great salad. So consider eating more of these kinds of salads. So how about soups? Soups are another great way to have a lunch or for supper. Soups are good for either meal. And I remember when I was first married and starting to learn how to cook, my husband and I would eat pea soup, but the way I was making it, it was kind of runny. It would have a lot of water and it was kind of runny. And then one of our neighbors invited us over to their apartment for soup. And she served pea soup. And it was so thick. And my husband couldn't say enough positive things about it. And I can remember when I got back in the apartment and I was like, so does that mean you don't like my pea? You know how sometimes wives can be with husbands. I was like, and he admitted, he goes, I really like it thicker. And so now, I've learned that when you make soups, I like to have the base, the flavor, but make sure, they're a good thickness and you've got a lot of your ingredients in there. So vegetable broth, you can use juice. What is allium? It's the onion, garlic, leek family, and chives and shallots and ginger are in that family. And I love onions. I love garlic. So does my husband and family. I use lots of onions and garlic. I also have, with the seasonings, I think for all of my cooking, I've kind of realized that all of the individual seasoning bottles, basil, thyme, oregano, all of these different ones, I had so many seasoning bottles and then I lose track of them. They've been in there for a long time, maybe years. I finally, when I moved to our current house, I just really went through and said, man, some of them I had from early marriage, like surely they're not good anymore. I threw them out. And I go, I need help with seasoning. I love the seasoning mixtures, the no salt seasoning bottle from, is it Costco? Probably Sam's has ones where there's no salt, all these seasonings. Combinations make it easy for me to feel like I'm seasoning something up. Fill it with vegetables, make sure you get your cruciferous vegetables and add your beans. And really these kinds of tips go for soups, stews. It's a great way to have a meal. And you can round that out with a fresh salad, some whole grain crackers or a slice of bread. That is a meal in and of itself. Easily. So what do you usually do for lunch, Ida? Because you work.
I typically pack like a sandwich or wrap.
So you pack something like a wrap.
Yeah, I do like my salads, but wraps just tend to be easier to pack.
Yeah, and sometimes they can be a little cleaner to hold on to because everything's contained. But it's a quicker lunch. It's a lunch that you can eat quick, fast, clean. Yeah. So and portable even. So lunches that's how I see a lunch. I still flash back to my work day, something a little bit quicker. So snacking. This is my opinion and recommendation on snacking. Eat at meal times only. Really try to avoid snacking. If you sit down to your meal times and you have a good, wholesome, balanced salad or soup meal or sandwich meal, that meal, if you have your good carbs, your veggies, your fruits, your good fats in them, that should hold you 4 or 5 hours before you really are are starting to get hungry. And a lot of times we're not even waiting till we get hungry. We're eating because of the clock says, oh, it's noon. I should be eating soon. So try to eat a good meal. When you eat a good meal, you don't really need snacks. And when you have that fasting time of at least 13 hours between your last meal and your breakfast meal, that's just a really good reset time. And it allows our bodies to enter into that fat burning stage of digestion. And typically our snacks have something salty, sugary, fatty in them. And although they satisfy that momentary craving or need that I feel I have right then, it causes me to need it again because it creates the up and down blood sugar and the hormone swings. And so really, this is something to try to avoid, in my opinion. And if for some reason you missed a meal or something really threw your schedule off, maybe grab a whole piece of fruit and a little bit of peanut butter to eat with it, and then wait till your next meal and have what you would normally eat. Dinner. Dinner is the meal that I imagine in my mind. We're all coming home from work, and what we do, that's the time the family can be together, even if the family is just my husband and I because we're empty nesters, or the family includes children or grandparents, and it could include friends. So it's the time when people are going to gather and eat. And many people are coming home from work, so they're tired. They've been, they're pressed for time. So planning ahead, we'll talk about it. Why don't we consider planning 3 recipes for the week, make them, double them, and then fill in other dinners with eating leftovers. I love leftovers. They're wonderful. And let's clean out the fridge and make something creative with our leftovers. And there are times that you may get a meal out. You may order something in, you may pick it up. I know with COVID that may be decreased for people, but there still are restaurants where people are picking up food or actually going out to eat. So the standard, thinking and training even that I had as a dietitian, and the way many women in the kitchen think is, okay, a starch, a vegetable, a protein, and then what am I going to put together? Well, the starch, of course, you've got your whole grain rice selections, whole grain pasta selections. And what I'm doing now, and I feel is a good idea, is I try to extend my rice. So I'll put rice, like if I'm making a fried rice, I'll have rice, but I'll extend it with extra onions, extra mushrooms, extra veggies like cauliflower rice, or cabbage, the coleslaw cabbage mix. I use it in my Slawson salad, but then I also use it in my saute as a rice extension or a noodle extension, and it's super good cooked. And I do have a spiralizer, and so you can make spiral noodles or whatnot. So you can use rices and pastas, but you can extend them with vegetables to get more vegetables in your diet and to decrease the calorie concentration and the carbohydrate concentration of some of those heavy carb meals. Vegetables, get your colors in, lots of color. Make sure you're getting a lot of your low starch vegetables because those are more nutrient dense. And the starchy vegetables like corn and peas, use them, as an accent or an ingredient in the soup or the stew. Yeah, you can eat a serving of peas or a serving of corn, but if you had corn in a black bean salsa or a black bean burger, that's kind of what I mean. Use it like an accent. And then these ideas for soups and stew, casseroles and ethnic recipes are great ideas for dinner. They cook up well, they hold well, they reheat well. So let's look at some of these ideas. I had fun looking and finding pictures of different types of ideas for plant-based eating. So quesadillas are quick and easy. Enchiladas are pretty much rolled quesadillas with a sauce on them. Tacos are easy and so tasty. Down on this other corner, you've got like a pasta primavera full of vegetables. You've got soups or stews that are rich and thick. You've got salad bowls that include a grain, like a Mediterranean bowl or a quinoa bowl, where there's lots of vegetables, there's always beans, and there's a whole grain starch on a bed of leafy greens. There's more ideas. You've got fried rices, sauteing up a lot of vegetables with the rices and great seasonings that you can put in there are so satisfying. And then there are Thai curries. I love red curry. They're great for pad Thai, and then Indian curries. So you can see how ethnic foods are so flavorful, so much taste and color and nutrition and fiber and vegetables. So those are great dinner ideas. And you can Google best plant-based recipes, best plant-based soup. You'll get so many ideas, and many of these recipes are very easy to follow. People have written great instructions. They have many times pictures of what the cooking process looks like. So it's not unrealistic that I could probably pull off one of these if I wanted to, and they're super tasty. And then if you want to really add some extra punch, you could put some toppings on ones. So nuts and seeds could be a topping. The avocado, chopped avocado, olives, fresh herbs like cilantro. I love cilantro, so I tend to eat generous amounts of it when it's available. I love chopped curly parsley or flat leaf parsley, dill, fresh dill. I also use those as dried herbs in my cooking as well. So these are very rich, very satisfying, and they replace the sprinkled cheese, the sour cream dollop. There's other things that we can use in place of those animal products that are packing nutrition and fiber and color and flavor. There are substitutes for animal products if you want to have like a transition product. There's vegetarian, vegan cheeses that are shredded that you can purchase in the stores. My Publix has a big section of them. They're so mainstream now. There's so many refrigerated and frozen meat substitute items of all sorts. You can get griller crumbles that are ground beef, and you can make soups or chilies out of those. You can get patties. You can get little sausages, little breakfast sausage patties. There's so many options available, and you can make them yourself. The recipes that are out there on the internet, or if you have a friend or know people who make some of these meat substitutes on their own, they are so good. And I make some of these on my own, and I like to make them instead of in big casserole dishes. I've started putting them in individual serving size or even muffin tins so that I can freeze them and I can pull them out and reheat them. So it's just a way I can save prep and cooking time by using my freezer. What about a sweet tooth? Who doesn't have one? I think everybody enjoys sweets, but we need to be careful of garbage. In the previous presentation, you know, we talked about the danger of sugar and white flour and overusing those. So with desserts, I can remember growing up, we didn't get desserts every night or after every meal. We might have got something on a weekend or special occasions, but it wasn't a daily or multiple times during the day. So really, I think infrequent use is reasonable. Instead of getting your whole individual piece of a dessert or serving, share it. Take small bites. Sometimes, you know which bites are the best bites of a dessert, or is the first bite and the last bite. And everything in between, maybe just too many, too much. But that first bite tastes so good, and the last bite tastes really good because you wish there was more, but there's not. But it's the middle part we have to be really careful of. How about some old-fashioned things like applesauce with cinnamon in it? Baked apples. You know, I haven't baked an apple in years, and I was thinking about it today. I was like, I should try that. I know my husband really likes baked apples. I should surprise him. You know, frozen fruit, frozen berries that you've defrosted. You can freeze bananas, you can freeze grapes. There's different ways to use frozen fruit, and you can put them in a smoothie and sort of make your smoothie more like a dessert portion rather than a big cup of smoothie. Dark chocolate, of course, I recommend dark chocolate. I enjoy some dark chocolate. It's so much better than milk chocolate. Milk chocolate is, it's so sweet. Your body just says, keep feeding me that. There's no breaks. There's no carb breaks on milk chocolate. Dark chocolate limits your quantity just because it doesn't have as much sugar. Nuts and keto recipes for lower carb and sugar.
Sean,
Yeah.
I had a question. You hear so much about keto. Is keto healthy?
Okay, so Ida's asked, she's heard about keto and a lot about it, and is keto healthy? And that's a big question, and I'll only give a little answer because maybe we can cover more of that topic in another session. But keto typically is the low carb recipes, and they'll be higher in fat and higher in protein. But I have found when I've been looking and researching keto that a lot of their dessert items and even some of their bread and cracker items, they are lower carb and lower sugar for two reasons. The flours are often almond flour, coconut flour, and those flours are very high fiber and low carb. So your net carbs are very low because you're using those flours. The other thing in the keto type desserts is they're not using table sugar. They're not using fructose. They're using other sugars like xylitol, erythritol, and those are a type of sweetener that don't increase your blood sugar and therefore your insulin response. Because with keto controls the insulin response and your blood sugar. So I think that makes for probably a good way to maybe look at some of the dessert recipes if you have to have a dessert. And so there's some pictures. Chia pudding. I love chia pudding. It's amazing. It sort of reminds me of tapioca pudding, which is a good old-fashioned pudding, but tapioca pudding is high in carbohydrate and chia pudding is low, and mix it with some fruit. And I mix mine up with a vanilla nut milk. I add extra vanilla and a little bit of stevia and put fruit on it, and it's fabulous. And some nuts, I put nuts on it. So miscellaneous real quick, planning. You have to plan. If you're a woman or a man responsible for meals for yourself or other people, you got to plan ahead, because you got to go to the grocery store. You got to figure out what you're going to buy because of what you're going to make. So plan enough. Look at the grocery store specials. Sometimes that will drive what your menu may be for that week. And shop with a list. Get people involved. If you have more than yourself in your household, figure out a way to get them involved in this in a positive way. And you can't get away from food prep. You have to do food prep, just like you can't get away from cleanup. You can't get away from some level of food prep. Prep ahead. There are ways that, if you buy fresh produce, if you clean it, it lasts longer. If you store it properly, it lasts longer and stays fresher. So prep properly, and you're going to find that if you do these steps, when it's time for you to assemble your meal and cook your meal, that's going to be a better experience. Here's some favorite kitchen tools. If you have a family and you do have to do a lot of cutting and chopping, a food processor was my favorite appliance. And crock pots. I was a crock pot queen. I used crock pots to cook while I was gone during the day, and I used them to cook things overnight. Very versatile. And then I've got a couple of different food processors. And then my Magic Pot. My favorite appliance right now is the Magic Pot, which is basically a pressure cooker. And this is the Instant Pot is a brand. I don't have an Instant Pot. I have a Fagor. It really doesn't matter what the brand is. It's if you know how to use it according to the manufacturer instructions, you're gonna make some magic in your pressure cooker. So take advantage of some kitchen tools that make your life in the kitchen easier. Travel, plan for travel, whether you're traveling to work, traveling to school, traveling for a trip. Think ahead and plan ahead. Take your own food, because especially if you're traveling through airports, which I know is limited or not recommended possibly at this point with COVID, at least going on your trip. I find that I pack my food when I go. Sometimes if I'm going to stay at a hotel, when I'm coming back, it's more difficult. But if I'm going to a family member's place, then I will pack food for the trip to come back. But plan and pack. Rest. I think the point I want to make about rest is make sure to leave at least 3 hours between the time you go to bed and when you finished your last meal. The reason why that's important is your body needs time to digest, and your digestive system has a right and a need to have rest. So it's not working all night trying to digest this heavy meal that you just ate and now you're going to go to sleep. You won't sleep as well if your stomach and your stomach's full. So try to leave that time frame between when you finish your last meal and when you go to bed. It's will help you rest. Okay, so we're pretty much wrapping this up. We've got make sure you think about your kitchen and how food preparation is a sacred duty, and it requires, I think it needs for us to treat it with respect and see it as a positive duty deserving of excellence. And when we're following whole person health, mind, body, spirit, I feel really good knowing and believing that God has a love for me. He has positive plans for me. He wants to prosper us. He wants to heal us. And he has really given us these principles for lifestyle wellness that will not only keep us healthy, but can prevent and reverse disease when we have maybe fallen off our path and want to get redirected to a healthier lifestyle. So I don't know if there were any chat questions. If there were, I'll look at them with Ida and we can communicate back. We will be sending out a program evaluation that will be a link you can click. I know that in talking with Ida and Travis, our next plan is to put together a presentation on boosting your immunity against viruses and basically staying in strong immune health, which is definitely something that we need now. We don't have the date set, but we'll have it set soon and let you know. So once again, I want to thank you for listening and for being concerned enough about your health to take time to check this presentation out. Thank you so much from Daytona Beach Seventh-day Adventist Church and from Advent Health Daytona Beach. We look forward to meeting and Zooming with you again soon in the future. Goodbye.